What's up, YouTube? My name is Dell. This is Dell on Movies. Welcome to my channel. If you've never been here before, if you have, welcome back. Thanks for spending some more of your precious time with me. I truly appreciate it. And today we're going to rank the Scream movies. And I want to start with the reason why I'm doing that is simply this shirt. So one day, my wife and my daughter, they were out. They were kind of doing their own thing. And suddenly I got a text from one of my daughters. She says, "Hey, would you wear this shirt?" She sent me a picture of the shirt. Let me try to stand up without breaking my neck. Here's a tight spot. And I texted back yes. So when they came home, I had the shirt and I hadn't worn it. It's been a couple weeks actually since she bought the shirt. I finally put it on today and I said, hey, you know what? In honor of me just wearing the shirt for the very first time, why not rank all the Scream movies? And as you can see, there's a box set right back here. Also, usually sits way up there. I've had it for maybe 10, 15 years. I wanted to show that before I got into the rankings. And it's in pretty rough shape because you can see it's been through some things. Like I said, it's been sitting up there for forever and ever and ever. Hopefully, I will replace it soon. I do have some of the newer ones in a newer format. And let's go ahead and talk about all of them. Coming in and fifth place for me is the movie that is far and away the weakest for me. It's not the newest movie in the franchise. This one is Scream 3. So Scream 3 is the one that tries the hardest to be the most meta, but not as successfully as the other movies. Because one of the big things about the Scream franchise that I love is that it is a meta universe, a meta franchise. This one tries too hard and does a little too much going in that direction. And it comes off not as well as the rest of the movies in the franchise. And I actually rewatched it not long ago. It actually is a pretty good movie. It's not a terrible movie. It had been years before I watched it since the last time. And I kind of thought it was a terrible movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's just not up to the standards of the rest of the franchise. Coming in fourth for me is the newest Scream. And for some reason, it's just called Scream and not Scream 5. I hate when movies just use the same title over for no apparent reason within the same franchise. And that's what this feels like to me. Scream 5 should have been a slam dunk title, no argument at all. But they went with just Scream. This movie, where Scream 3 is a little too meta, this movie is probably not quite meta enough. And it's not scary enough to carry the day on the other end of it. So it comes off somewhere in the middle, not quite committing to either. It's still a pretty good movie overall. I have it in fourth. I could interchange it with the movie that's next up, the one that's in number 3 spot, and that is Scream 4. So for Scream 4, a lot of people, let's start just right at the beginning. A lot of people hate the beginning of Scream 4. It said it does way too much. It just goes way overboard. For me, it kind of dives right at the heart of what I like, or why I like the Scream franchise, is that it's actually not a real horror movie franchise like people think it is. Yes, it's horror, but it's really a series of spoof movies. And people fail to see that a lot of times. This is definitely a spoof. And I'll talk more about that when I get to the top movie. But this was actually still pretty good. It made some commentary on the social media age and wanting to be popular based on how many followers and likes and all that sort of thing. It was nothing that was too deep, but it did make sense. It's a pretty good movie. Next up is, for my money, one of the best horror sequels of all time, and that is Scream 2. And again, we got to talk about the opening. So, and again, I don't want to spoil any of these movies in case anybody hasn't seen them. I know most of them are really old, and that's fine, but I still don't like spoiling really old movies, especially these. So I'll just talk really briefly about the opening. This takes the original movie, takes that concept of playing with the horror rules and really kind of turning them on their ear. Well, in the beginning of this movie, we meet Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps, and one of the famous horror tropes is that the black people are the first to die, and it does happen here. But it's, for me anyway, it's pretty clear that Wes Craven is playing with the trope. Wes Craven directed the first 4 Scream movies, and then he passed away, rest in peace. Pretty clear that he's playing with the tropes and kind of doing things on purpose. And the first Scream set me up for that, to really buy into that, and then later events in Scream 2 even helped me buy into that even further. So as a whole, though, I think this movie is really close to the my number one movie, which of course deductive reasoning lets us know it can only be one choice, and that is the original Scream, and this is the 4K version of it, of course. For me, not only is this my favorite movie of the Scream franchise, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, period, and definitely my favorite horror movie and favorite slasher movie. So yes, I've completely bought into the Scream franchise. It's an amazing movie because I talked about it being a spoof before. It is that, but it does manage to tell a really good horror movie story of its own. It's not just a bunch of random scenes and or ripping off some other movie and trying to make fun of it, which is why I personally don't like the Scary Movie franchise. Those, I know a lot of people like, particularly Scary Movie, the first one, and I never really cared for it. And Roger Ebert is one of my favorite film critics of all time, and I remember the words vividly from his review. He had the same similar problem that I had with Scary Movie when I watched it, and that is it is a spoof of a movie that's already a spoof, so therefore it's kind of pointless. And with the Scary Movie, now I'm talking more about Scary Movie than Scream, but with Scary Movie, it's just scenes taken from other horror movies stitched together, and then they added either a gross element or something that's supposedly some sort of slapstick humor to that scene, and called it a comedy and a spoof, and didn't work here for me. Scream does what a good spoof does. Yes, it makes fun of the genre that it wants to, but it's also a part of that genre and tells a good story within that genre, and that's what Scream does. So it feels very much like a straightforward horror flick. So if you're not familiar with a lot of the references that are made in the movie, I know a lot of them are explicit because they actually mention like Friday the 13th by name and Halloween by name, and they make those references pretty clear, and they talk about slasher rules, but there are other subtle references also. And if you're not familiar with them, you can still enjoy the movie on its own because it tells a good horror story. So it does its job on that end. And then if you are familiar with those movies, you get the inside jokes. It's a bunch of things that you catch on to if you've seen a bunch of other horror movies. So that's why Scream is one of my favorite movies of all time. Well, I'm looking forward to Scream 6. I'm not going to get into all the news about Scream 6, who's in it, who's not in it, who might be the killer, who's coming back. I don't really care. I'm not a trailer guy. I'm not a guy who follows the news of the movies. Just when the movie comes out, let me know and I'll be there to watch it. So that's where I am with Scream 6. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll probably redo this after seeing Scream 6. I'll probably re-rank them. I may watch the whole franchise again, and maybe I'll feel differently at that time. But for now, this is all I have for you. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye.